This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. My name is Vicky Quinn Fraser, and this week I am back again for part 2 of my interview with John Holcroft, author of Be a Client Whisperer. And this week we are digging really deep into John's writing process. We are going to be talking about his inciting incident, what inspired him, what pushed him to write his book in the first place. We're going to talk about what he learned on the way on his writing journey and how he actually did it. We're going to talk about the magic of beta readers and feedback along the way. We're going to talk about how long your book should be, which is, we're both of a similar opinion on that. So tune in, listen, keep listening, find out what we think, and also about how long it took him to write and the fact that he's actually okay with that. We talk a little bit about different ways to write a book and why it might take longer, why it might not take as long. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. And we're back in the room with John Holcroft, author of Be a Client Whisperer. So, John, hello, welcome back. Thank you for coming back.
Hello, great to be here.
Yay! I love how we're like talking about this like we didn't literally just talk yesterday. behind the scenes sneak peek. Yes. So John, we wanted to get you back to talk about, this is turning into a really epic series, which I'm really, really excited about because there's a lot to say on your topic and also, of course, on the topic of writing books. But today I wanted to talk about your process, your book writing process, how you found the whole thing, how you got started and whatnot. And so without further ado, let's dive in, because I really want to know, why did you write the book in the first place? What kind of pushed you?
Sure. Well, it came from, I had an experience where I realized a project had gone wrong, and I realized it had gone wrong because of a communication problem. And it was mine. So I had gone through a whole process where I had become a really good product developer. Right. I was very good at interviewing people, understanding things and working out what's happening and working out, what's going to work, what's not going to work, and delivering value. Right? And I did a project for a hospital, and I went there and I did all the right process. A consultant got me in to do a piece of work, and they had, as happens with software projects, they kind of waved their hands about, oh, we need this kind of rough thing. Can you tell me exactly how much that will cost and when it'll be delivered?
Everybody's dream brief.
yeah. And I thought, okay, that's very interesting. And I made the point to them, but I don't think they heard me say it, which is that the hardest thing about software is that almost all of it fails, not because it doesn't work, but because it's not useful for the people who need it. Right? There's if you're a layperson, you don't see it because almost every piece of software you use has passed, right? For those people who use software, you don't see the 99%, the giant wastelands of software that did not work, that was not useful. Anyway, so I was trying to make this point and saying, so I'm going to go and talk to all the people involved in this project, all the people in your hospitals, all the stakeholders. I'm going to talk to the IT department. I'm going to talk about the senior doctors and the junior doctors and all the various things on this problem that you have got. And I did all that, and I did a really good job, and I worked out what it was they needed, and I came up with all prototypes and all the various things and stuff, and I presented it to all the various stakeholders beforehand, and I thought, that's amazing, that's exactly what I want, that's so great, right? And then I presented it to the consultant who actually had brought me in, who went, no, that's not what I asked for, that's not what I thought you were going to do. And they want me to do what the original idea was, which I was trying to explain, which was that's never going to work. You're trying to force people to do things that's never going to work, and it's going to die. And so the whole project falls apart.
Okay, so just so that I understand. So what happened was he told you what he wanted. You went away and produced something on like this is why what you want is not going to work, this is what is going to work, and he came back and said, that's not what I want at all, even though you know that what he wanted wasn't going to work.
Yes. And ultimately the problem, and I realized, because ultimately it was my fault for a number of reasons. I it's very easy for me to blame, say, lack of vision, blah, blah, all sorts of stuff on their part. But it was me, right? And the problem with me was because I hadn't communicated the process, and I hadn't taken the owner on the same journey I had been on.
Right.
So I had gone and discovered all these things, but then presented it as a result. They had not been on that journey with me, right? So
they didn't understand how you got to the result.
And that type of thing. And so, and I realized that, hold on a sec, so that if I kept all, this was me doing bespoke software development, I realized that, that like every small business owner, you kind of get clients by chance, right? And you discover things about what works and what doesn't, and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And through that, I realized, which is I had done the right thing in terms of the process, but I hadn't communicated it, so I need to communicate it. And what I'd really like, if I could communicate that in public, then people could read that, understand that, and pre-filter themselves to come to me, knowing what my process is and saying, what you said you'd do, that sounds perfect for us, please do that for us. That is what I want to try and do.
Awesome.
So right, I'm going to document this. Mm-hmm. And so it all started then it started as a book on software development for non-techies. It was explaining, say you want to commission a piece of software, what's involved in that? And the fact that my point in it really is that all the really important stuff is related to talking to people and understanding people and working out what to do. The actual making the thing, that's actually, it is a skilled task, but it's a skilled task you could hand to anyone who is skilled in the craft. Right? Yeah. There's that bit beforehand that has to happen. And so that's where I started writing. And yes, and in total, just to both terrify people, because it was my first book. And, in some ways you could say, people ask you, how long does it take to write a book? And I think you get that question
all the time.
So there's one answer and there's the truth, right? So you could say it would be straightforward to say it's about 3 months' work, generally stretched over 6, right? But yet it took me 4 years. And I find most people writing a first book take a long period of time over it. And I think that's okay, because it's part of the journey you go on. And yeah, the main point was actually, I think you have to, you're discovering what you're writing in the process that you're writing it.
Yeah. And, like you said, it's funny because what people ask me that question all the time. It's like, how long is it going to take me to write a book? And my answer is always, well, it depends on very, very many things. And like some people like you, it's going to take you 4 years. Other people, have written an amazing book in 6 months or a year. And there's a lot of factors. And so I think it's really great to talk to somebody who's taken the journey, not on your own, because there've been
Mm-hmm.
people around you and all the rest of it. But yeah, your journey has been this particular one. And this is it. I think people are often looking for a laid out journey that's like, this is how it's going to be. And there are people out there who will promise you that, that such a thing exists and, whatever, good luck to them. But I think it's really great that, you're here and you're like, actually, this took me 4 years and this is why. So do you want to talk a little bit about, why you think it took you the 4 years and what the benefits of that were to you?
Yes, because I also don't mind.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like sometimes that's okay. It's like sometimes people want to get their books out super quick, and if you don't mind that it took you that long, that's cool. So
it would have been nice to have done that in less time, but actually I don't consider it wasted time to some extent on things. And I'll just start by making a point, because I think, at least my experience, right? My experience with lots of advice, both on book writing and on businesses and things, is kind of similar, which is they're problematic in that they assume that you already know the end point and it's a process to get there. Right? Yeah. And almost every small business owner I've known or started doing things, they are discovering, right? They've worked out that I want to do this general thing in this general area, helping these kind of people. But then exactly how you do it is something you discover over time through actually trying to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that was my same experience with the book, which I thought, all right, there's these kind of people I want to help in this area. But it involved me actually trying to create to actually discover what was working and what didn't. So there's there's something good things I did with the process, and then I'll tell you all about the whole. So the very good things I did was I kind of put on my startup brain, and I started by recruiting people who were interested really early. So I imagined a title for the book and what it was about, and I made a landing page describing it and why it mattered and how it would benefit your life. Right. And then I, through the people I knew, I just tried to recruit people then I could talk to.
Yeah.
And I did. And so I then talked to lots of people. So the people that then identified with that message for me describing it is about this for people in this situation. The people who identified that, signed up. I then talked to them, and they and eating my own dog food because this is what the book is about. I was talking them to find out about what is their experience in this area, what do they care about, all that type of things, and then from that I was thinking about, okay, so I could write, there's a million things I could write about, but I'm going to work right on helping these people where they are. Mm-hmm. Which was also very good because before this, I was probably going to make the standard mistake of I thought writing a book was putting your entire life's experience in your field into a book.
Yeah, a lot of people think that's a good thing to do. It's not.
It's impossible in multiple ways. But but anyway, so you got it right. So it's a book. So my book was on a small thing on helping these people. And then I went. So I did an outline. I roughly described, so this is who it's for, why it exists. And I think it's going to have these chapters roughly talking about these things, mm-hmm. and going through. And then the next good thing I did is I got into a routine for my writing.
Yeah. Yes.
So, So I just did, I will, 3 or 5 times a week, I will first thing in the morning write for an hour. Mm-hmm. That was the backbone that made this book come out, by the way.
Yes.
If anything else. And then largely, I wrote what I wanted, which is I thought, today I'm going to write on a theme. Mm-hmm. And I wrote what came into my head on that. Yeah. I just kept doing this. And over time, and actually I had to come back a few times. I kept re-outlining. I took what I had written in the past 3-6 months. I went through, how would I structure that saying thing? There's a reason why I'm putting this down. And a structure was coming from what I had already written. Yeah. And that helped me forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the magic of outlining. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think a lot of people fall down. I say it, a lot of people that I've worked with who have similar brains to me, and I have as well, fall down where you're kind of like, I've got to start at the beginning and I've got to write the book through to the end. And for me, that's a terrible way to try and write a book, because like you just said, you don't always know where it's going. But also, this is the magic of the outline that you put together, because you can look at that every day or every time you sit down to write and be like, what do I feel like writing today? And of course, at some point, you've got to write the damn stuff that you don't really want to write. But it's just really great to be able to have that picture of kind of where you've been, where you're going, the outline, and be like, okay, I don't really feel like writing today. So actually, what's going to bring me joy? What's going to be a fun thing to write about? What's going to be the thing that I feel like writing about today? Is that kind of what you found when you were working through?
Yes. Yeah. I just find that actually, I just enjoy. There was a pain. There's a pleasure and the pain of writing. Actually, my upbringing at school had taught me to hate writing and that I was no good at it. Right? Yeah. Everything about school taught me that, which is why I went into science things and stuff, because they were straightforward, and you write down the answer, you get the marks. Any essay question was a torture for me to do, and therefore the world taught me I was terrible at it. Mm-hmm. Plus, they decided to tell me that teaching me how to write was using lots of grammar.
Yes.
And of course, it took me a while to find out through doing this, of course, is that that good writing is simple writing.
Yes.
And yes, and that it's good to get to the point and not to waffle. Yeah. And I actually eventually discovered that I can write. What school had taught me was wrong. We can all do it. We can all walk. We can all ride a bicycle. We can all write. It's just you just put the time in it, and you can learn to do it. Right?
Yeah. And it's funny as well, because like writing, good writing isn't actually about the writing. It's about the message behind it. And that's the thing that I think, certainly for me, when I was at school, that's what it missed, was like actually, what are you really trying to say? And how are you trying to make people feel? And that was the key for me. So yeah, I'm glad you got past the school horror and wrote your damn book.
Well, that was true. And also I had a realization about communication, right? Which is that I realized, what makes a book boring and what makes it interesting. I'm talking about non-fiction books here, right?
Yeah.
And and the realization I had was that, or the mistake I saw is people trying to communicate facts, right? Whereas actually I realized that myself, and I believe everyone else, learns through experiences. Right.
Yeah.
So to take an example, right, which is I as a parent, and I'm sure all other parents, have told their very young children the thing, which is things can be hot and can burn you, but don't look hot. Right. That's me stating a fact. Right. Every parent has said this to their kids. Right. Mm-hmm. Every single one of us have learned that lesson, not through people telling us, but through touching something which didn't look to be hot and burnt ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And this happened to both my kids, right? And that just eventually happened. I tried to not happen, but eventually they touched a hot thing where they shouldn't have. Ends in tears, and they learned that lesson.
Yeah.
And otherwise, all these factual statements, right, are effectively aid memoirs in our own heads for an experience we previously had, right? And we're attempting to communicate experiences. And so I might be getting a bit weird here, but it occurs to me, I have a point of opinion that writing's telepathy, right? Writing is where you get thoughts from one person's head to another person's head. And
100%.
if you want to do skills, you're trying to communicate experiences, not facts. The facts come at the end, but people only really learn. And the way that happens actually, and how do you share experiences? Through stories, right?
Yes.
So actually then that actually changes what you write quite a bit. That's a new direction. Because then you find out, all right, this chapter, if you have to say, I want to write on a bullet point thing, right? Which is, like we say, people should listen, right? That then I can, is there a story where this goes wrong, where it doesn't happen? Right? Is there a story I can tell where someone can understand and say, that's what bad looks like, right? I get that. And then can you tell another story of what good looks like that then you can then pull facts out of, right? Because then that I find is both interesting and memorable.
Yes. I'm really glad you said that about what bad looks like, because I've seen a lot of people sharing an idea. I haven't seen it for a while, but I used to see it quite a lot, that, you shouldn't model bad. You shouldn't model bad because it'll just teach people how to do it badly. And that never sat right with me. So I'm really glad to hear you say that it's, people need to know what wrong, what bad looks like, what a bad way to do it looks like, so that they can then learn the right way to do it. So I love that. Carry on.
Cool. And that's therefore that ends up, then that kind of shaped my writing is just, I was trying to find stories to demonstrate concepts that then I could pull the facts out of on things. Yeah. And then that just that's it's both hard and slow, but also great, right? Because you realize that you could, in a chapter, you can say almost nothing, right? Because you can only consume a really small idea, and doing it in a way that is interesting and useful to people will actually take quite a long time to do. Telling these stories actually takes a fair amount of words to do. But yeah, and coming up with stories isn't necessarily easy, but you get there. Because it occurred to me that my book, it could be 10 pages of facts. Do this, do that, do the other thing. That it would be a torture to read and no one would remember or act on.
Do you know what though? One of the things I love about your book, and let me just grab it, because one of the things I love about it is at the beginning you've got too long didn't read. And I love it, but that made me I love it so much, because it's totally an idea that I'm going to swipe and credit you for, by the way. But yeah, it's like too long didn't read, and it's like, here are the things that you need to do, and it's like, that is the things you need to do. And the rest of the book is you doing exactly what you just said and kind of, telling the stories. But I love your Too Long Didn't Read. So
yes, yeah. So yeah, for any listeners who are interested in my book, go into Amazon, click Look Inside, and you will get for free the Too Long Didn't Read section and then the first chapter. So if you want to know what the book's about, because I lay it all out, I don't hide anything. I tell you exactly what I'm going to tell you in the very first chapter. And, and that's for you, read it. If it's not for you, don't bother.
I love it. And so that would probably be, like you said, there's that you could just lay those facts out. It would be the world's shortest and most boring book. Actually, maybe not the most boring book, because I've read some really long books that are very boring. So there's a middle ground to be had, right? So,
Indeed, we're all different. We're Baba, yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about how you decided what you wanted to go in your book and what you wanted to come out of your book.
Oh, yeah, dear God, yeah. There's a folder on my computer called Darlings Killed.
Nice, like it.
I'd explain that for non-book people. Was that an Anne Lamott thing? Well, I
think loads of people have said it, but yeah.
Okay, which is saying you need to kill your darlings. Right? Yeah. Which is that, and also this also tells about how did I, because I got stuck and I got out of it, and this is part of it. Right? Because I'd been writing for a while, and actually I had quite a lot. Actually, I had hundreds of thousands of words, really. Right. That book is actually quite short. It is, I think it's about 20,000 words. It's got worksheets in it, but actually would be 90 pages long without the worksheets. Right. So it actually feels, so probably if you look at the book, it looks absolutely fine, but it's a short book, really. And personally, I think it's exactly the right length. But anyway, so I'd written hundreds of thousands of words on various things, and it didn't feel like it was getting closer to finished. And I had always, I think, the doubt lots of writers have of, am I writing the right book? Oh, no, I really write a book on this thing. And I did actually go through different paths. Or, it's a book on this. Oh, no, now it's a book on that. Oh, now it's a book on this other thing a few months later, right? And I don't know, how am I going to get this done? Because I've been describing the book and its concepts to a lot of people I've been on, I do these productivity calls with people. I mean, talking to lots of people about it, and lots of them said, that sounds really interesting. I'd really like to know more about that. And so I said, right, I'm just going to deliver it. I said, all right, I'm going to run a course. I said, right, I'm going to get a handful of people, whoever I can find in basically in my whatever my easy thing is. I'm not going to try to do crazy marketing. Just whoever I can email, who I think is interested, and I'm going to charge them a token amount of money, an amount of money that they won't just do for no reason, but isn't a real amount of money for them to worry about. I think it's about 50 quid or something I charged. And then I ran actually a multi-week course on the main concepts of the book. And I did it. And again, it was really rough and ready. It was just a Zoom call with people where we talked and discussed things. Right? So it's not something you would ever market as a course, or try to sell to the general public. And through that, I found out what they understood, what they didn't. They asked me questions about their things, and then I kind of wrote that, or I then shaped what I delivered next week based on what they had told me the previous week. Nice. And through all these things, and now by the end of this period, I had both energy again and a sense of direction. Right, this is what they need, this is what they don't need, and all these type of things. And so then I started just putting the book together as best I could. And there were struggles in there, and part of that, which I overcome by saying, it doesn't flow from this bit to that bit to that bit. And I realized it doesn't flow because that chapter, though I love it, I think it's got some really great content that it would be wonderful for people, it's not for this book. And I had to just delete an entire chapter, which is actually more than one, and just put them aside and think, now it flows, now it makes sense. That was very good content I had to delete. Remove, archive, whatever I want to describe.
Use for something else in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But this book is about a thing, which actually I find really near the end, because it reminds me, there was a wonderful thing I heard from Pixar. because I'd heard lots of people, like lots of particularly fiction writing, they tell you that, theme's vital. You've got to know theme, know your theme, then stick it on your typewriter and only write in that thing. And it's all very good, right? But then Pixar, there's someone came up with tweeted like 12 storytelling lessons from Pixar. And one of them was, theme's incredibly important, but you won't know it until the end. Right? And they have an example, right? And their example is WALL-E, right? When it was almost in the cinema, they completely redid the ending. Right?
Did not know that.
Because what happened is, of course, in the film, the ending you see is that, the film up until the end is that WALL-E's been going on these various adventures, moving around, and he's been making friends, and he's been impacting people's lives. So he's making a positive impact on people's lives in a way he didn't even realize he was doing. Right. Yeah. And then the last act of the film is that you're trying to get the plant into the thing and the ship's trying to stop you from doing it. So the ending we have now is that WALL-E is almost destroyed. Right? And he doesn't save the day. All the people he impacted all through the journey of the film save the day and save WALL-E. Right? Because the point of the film is about friendship and the impact on people's lives. Right? That wasn't the original ending. The original ending had WALL-E saving the day, had him doing the things of him not being saved. And it was only at the end that the writers suddenly realized, and it was about to be in cinemas. It cost them a fortune to change the ending. Right? They said, it's got the wrong ending. It's about friendship. It's about and that's why they had to completely change the ending because they worked out, when it was almost out, they only realized what the film was about.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I love that for so many reasons. And also because it subverts the hero's journey really nicely, which I love because there's, again, and this is something, something for people listening to take away. It's like, we're often told, the hero's journey is kind of the way to write stories. And yes, that's true up to a point, but actually what's more true is exactly what WALL-E is about, which is like, it's never just one person doing a thing and changing the world. It's always everybody, like you say, the impact people. I love that story so much. I'm filing that away. I'm going to use it in the future. Thank you.
And then we get to, should we move on to beta readers?
Yes, let's move on to beta readers, because this is like, before we get into that, I just wanted to say there are many ways that people can write a book, and you can get all sorts of help. You can invest in help in like monetary terms and all the rest of it, and that will get you places either faster or tighter or whatever. And this is something that I really love the idea of, because it's like, you can invest in a good editor, and if you've got the money to do so, absolutely go and do it. That's brilliant. But I love beta readers because it's fantastic for people who are on a budget. So yes, please talk to me about beta readers.
Yes, because I wrote this book on no money, right? And so I think I could have got places faster, say, because there's different types of editors. There's developmental editors. There's developmental editors, and there's different ones of things, and then eventually to the proofreading and actually grammar editors and various things and stuff. Yeah. And of course, I did lots of this myself, effectively, because after running this beta course and doing things and talking to people was effectively doing my own developmental editing. Yeah. Which I've got to work on question, though someone could have helped me with that. I do wonder if someone's not already in my field, how much could they have done? Anyway, that doesn't matter.
That is a conversation for another day.
Sure. But anyway, so we did this thing, and therefore, I'm trying to get this out the door, and we're doing things. Yeah. And so therefore I said, all right, I've put together a whole pile of chapters, and I'm there I had my big whiteboard of, I created a Trello board called Getting to Shipped. Right, and I had a big list. I was all about moving things across the list. Right, it was just grab a problem, solve a problem, grab a thing, do a thing, and I was already always quite motivated to take one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. And I thought, all right, I need to get in front of people. So again, I recruited people, and I already have a previous list, and I created a new list. And I said, all right, I'm going to share the book with you over a period of time. I'm going to share one chapter a day, mm-hmm. and either reply with your comments or here's the Google Doc, fire in what you want. And it was incredible. Well, but incredible because it kind of forced me to do it, right? And as I put it, I started to realize things that I need to introduce this better. your little things like that. So you have to, when you're actually about to do it, you actually have to work out dot the I's and cross the T's and that kind of thing. And then the feedback I got, because it would work the way you would expect, which is lots of people got very excited to start and said lots of things, and fewer people said things as we got towards the end of the book.
Yeah.
But the people who got to the end of the book said the better things.
Yeah. Because they're fully invested by then, right?
There's two things which people get. Lots of people, you try to tell people, don't worry about the grammar.
But people love pointing out grammatical errors. They love it so much.
And I find out there's a contraction battle, right? I like to use contractions, like it's rather than it is and he's.
I fully approve of that, yes.
Right? Some people fundamentally believe in their soul that is wrong, and you must be told to do it right. And
we could just take a little sidebar here to say that those people are fundamentally wrong, and they can stand over there and be wrong in their wrongness, and that's fine. Now carry on.
That's the thing. Also, I want to write as I speak.
Yeah.
Which actually you can't really do. If you ever take a transcription of you actually speak, you realize, wow, that's terrible.
What people mean when they say that is, I want to write conversationally, which is.
If it was, I want to write as I think I speak. When I'm
as I would like to speak, as I am like a Barack Obama style orator. Yes.
Exactly. I thought that was where I was at, and it's all very good things. So people got confused, and they told me where you got confused, and I realized, right, I see why that's happened. And people give me just lots of really good comments about wanted more, and actually the best comments were the shortest. So I'll tell you the best comment, which was terrible but wonderful, was, I don't know what you're trying to say with this chapter. And they said that, and I looked at it and I went, she's right. There's a point I've been trying to make. I've been waffling. What is the point I'm trying to make? Because I don't think the chapters were. That's the point I'm trying to make. And then I kind of had to restructure. It was really hard. It's not a very nice thing to hear, because I realized that you realize that someone's giving me this really hard problem, actually. But then I did that.
So useful.
Yes. And little things like my kids, my family had been resisting reading the book. Of course, I thought it's a non-fiction book. It's been written by my dad, so it's probably boring, and I'll have to try and be nice about it. And right?
Yeah.
And my daughter happened to be beside me in the office when I actually had it up on the computer. In Vellum was the program I was using for the typesetting and things and stuff. And I had to pop out, and then she just read it while I was there, and she got almost the entire way through the book while I was out doing the thing. Awesome. And I came back, and she had a whole world of post-it notes on the desk in front of her. And of course, and what she said, of course, is that actually it was easy to read, and I enjoyed reading it, even though it's not necessarily for me.
That's cool.
And even the things that then that moved me, I think we almost shared some tears together, because she said, chapter 7, learning to listen, made me cry.
Oh.
That was one of her notes. And I said, so what was it about that? She said, well, I didn't expect to be in your book, because in chapter 7, I describe a conversation I had after getting teenagers to open up about their experiences.
Yeah. It's a really good chapter.
It's actually an example of getting people who aren't naturally opening up to open up. And so I had an example of a conversation with my daughter to do that, which was a real conversation. That conversation actually happened. And so she was surprised to find she was in the book. And then she said that, Hannah says that, what did she say? She said that it shows that my daddy cares and my daddy loves me.
Oh, I bet you had a bit of a cry after that.
Yeah, indeed, it was good, which is why she had the very last page in the book.
Nice.
There's quite a long acknowledgement section, and the very last acknowledgement is very simple.
Yeah, your acknowledgement section is beautiful, actually, and I think people chuck that together at the end without really giving it that much thought, but that can be a story in itself, and that's what you've done with your acknowledgement section. And I think it's really lovely. So,
because the end of my book is, I have opinions, right? And I have opinions of people not getting to the point and people not respecting other people's time reading a book. Right? Yeah. So I think you should say what you're going to do. There's things that a writer does for themselves and for their own ego, and there's things they do for the reader for helping them, right?
Yeah, and I should say here, we're talking very specifically about, because there's lots of different types of nonfiction books, and what you're talking about is a business nonfiction book helping somebody to do something specific.
Indeed. So this is opinion. I'll say, all right. Which is, I very much dislike prefaces in books where someone gets an external writer to say why this person is great to talk about this stuff. And I'm sorry, Vicky, I know you did that in your book, but that's looking to gain to say, you're looking to say why you're good for things. And I thought, it's not actually delivering the content. I'm thinking, often when I hear that in a book, I think, I was like, well, I'm not even got to start yet. I've got to start yet.
You know what though? That's because there's different ways of doing it. I think actually what you're talking about is a prologue, is when you get somebody else to. Yeah, that's okay. And so it is like, there is a reason for doing it. It's like if you want somebody to basically to pre-sell your book for you. So and you can do it well or not. And if I was going to do it again, I wouldn't get the same person to do it, and I would do it differently, because I think you're right. And there is a way of doing it that is really helpful. You can get people to talk about what's going to be in the book for you, which is then, it's a bit like your too long didn't read section. So yeah. But yeah.
Cool. And then also I realized there's lots of things like the acknowledgements and various stuff. And there's various things like, and also like how to find me and all that sort of stuff that is kind of for the author. And I thought, and that's it. That's but actually, I have, with I think 20 pages before the end of the book, I say, this is the end of the book. Everything I wanted to say, it has been said. But yet, there are still 20 pages left of the book.
I love that you did that as well. I think it's really cool.
And then I said, these chapters are effectively, for me, they are the extra things that I think will be useful for people, but you don't have to. It's not the main content of the book. If you stop reading where I say this is the end of the book, you've got to. This kind of thing. If you want to know more, I said, hell, here's how you can know more and work more on the stuff. I just for me, because I had what I put in cartoons and I didn't. So I put in the chapter that had cartoons that I had to take out, just so I put them in slightly.
Yeah.
And then also my acknowledgement section is enormous. And but it's enormous because I'm telling stories, not listing names.
Exactly.
I'm actually saying,
yeah, this is why I love it.
All these, because when I thought about it, so many people went into helping me shape this book. Most people think, I don't think I helped at all. What? No, but you did. There's 100 different people in some little way, in some little things, helped this come into an existence. And I want to say thank you. Even people who don't know me.
Yeah, which is super important as well, because I mean, I know you kind of said that you put that in the section that isn't really for the author, but I think that isn't really for the reader. But I think everything in this book is I know it says this book is ended, it's all useful for the reader, but I understand why. I understand why you did it. But yeah, I love that, acknowledgements are useful too. It can tell a story. It can tell a story about how you wrote the book, about the process of writing it, which a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, when they've loved a book, they want to know more about how it was written and how it came to be and all the rest of it. And so that's why I love a really well-written acknowledgement section that isn't just thank you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, thank you to so-and-so because of this, this, and this. And, it's just, make it a story and do something fascinating with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're almost at the end. Is there anything left you want to talk about?
We are. I just want to say that I am 100% with you about respecting people's time in books, because the example that I always use is a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And I'm no shade to him because he's a very smart guy and all the rest of it. I read chapter 1 of his book. It changed my life. And the rest of it, don't give a shit. Couldn't care, because it was just that it felt to me like, it was very American centric. And that's a me problem, not a him problem, because he's American. But also it's like the really valuable stuff was all in chapter 1, and the rest of it genuinely did feel like fluff. And I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure people are listening to this and they're like, oh, you need to read it, chapter X, because it was amazing. But I'm like, no, I got all I needed from that first chapter. Absolutely changed my business. So it's like you say, what are you trying to tell your reader? What are you trying to help your reader to do? And there's like really be really focused on that. And for me, Profit First is a really good example of how that could have been a very short book.
Well, let's actually explain a bit more about that, because I'll say also the wobbles I had before I published it. Yeah, about a standard review. If you if you go to any kind of business nonfiction book and look on Amazon, look at all the reviews, right? A very common comment on a book is, this could have been done in half the number of pages, or the main things in this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And for me too, and it's my experience of writing a book, of reading books. Sorry, I prefer when people I want them to be entertaining and interesting. That's almost like I almost need that. It's very hard to push.
Yes, they have to be. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just too hard. But there's a book should be on a thing, and a thing, if it's really, really long, I think you can't actually get all of it. You can't do it. You pick up a book because there's generally a problem in your life you're looking to solve. Mm-hmm. You're not about to start a PhD in this thing. I've got a problem, I want to solve it. Help me get there. Yeah. And so then, here's where ego comes into this, right? Because I think if you just say, how long should a book be? And they'll tell you, I think an average book length is about 50,000 words type thing, right? And I get to the end of mine was 20,000 words. And I realized it's only just about 100 pages. And I started to feel self-conscious, that it's not a real book.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I have so many things to say about that, but carry on.
And things. And I, honest to goodness, for a short period of time, thought about padding it out. And then people said, no, that's don't do it. Everything you believe, you have said what you wanted to say, and you kind of front loaded it with the important stuff, and you've put more reference material at the back, so people can, if they drop out, that's fine. They've probably got the important stuff in the attention span they had. Yeah. But then people had me other ideas, which was the idea. So. I think it is okay to write a short book.
It is 100%.
And it's there's ego in which is by society, and a little bit through the publishing industry, which is that I find
I have so many things to say about the publishing industry.
Let's just say why the publishing industry wants a book to be 50,000 words long. It is so the spine is wide enough so it's easily readable from a distance. Mm-hmm. Right? This is under the assumption that people choose books by going into a bookstore and choosing a book by an interesting spine. Whereas
yes.
in the
they overestimate the power of curb appeal.
Right, and whereas I think the thing I've heard, and I believe, because my experience buying non-fiction books in recent times is everything I've bought is through recommendation, right? Yeah. I have heard it recommended by a person I respect, or heard an author talk about it on a podcast or some things, right? I've never gone through advertising. I've never gone exploring differently. I've always found things through recommendation. Yeah. And they have to deliver content. Anyway, I finally, and also what I also did is I got preview copies made. Mm-hmm. And they ask you questions you don't even know you don't know when they ask you. So I used a company called Mixam because I could print them for almost no money. I think it's 20 quid for 10 type thing. Yeah. And they came back and I didn't like it because it was on white paper. Mm-hmm. It just looked, and I used the default size that Vellum had said for this thing, and I thought the text looks quite small, and it's a bit uncomfortable in the hand. Actually, you get to force it open, to hold it open, and it kind of looks like you printed it yourself on printer paper. You have to choose between white paper and cream paper. You find it's a choice when you do things, right? Yeah. And so then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to print it bigger. and so I actually just same number of pages, the exact same layout, but just printed it. That's 6 inches by 9 inches or whatever that is in metric. And I chose what they call cream paper, or might be better described as normal book paper, right?
Yeah.
which is maybe what it should be called, right? And then you find that that paper is just naturally thicker, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden your book is thicker, it's more comfortable in the hand, it feels right, it looks properly published, and it's a lot easier to read. And just all these little things, you know.
There is a chapter in my book called How to Avoid Looking Like an Amateur, and I talk about this a little bit because it is really, really important, and it's just little things like that you don't think about. But yeah, I mean, 100% short books. I'm a massive fan of short books. There's a place for short books, there's a place for long books, but ultimately, like you said, it's like it needs to be the length it needs to be for you to get across the message that you want to get across, and that people can receive. And beyond that, you know, it's ego, like you said, it's pressure from the traditional publishing industry, which is extremely problematic in many, many ways. And yeah, there's just like a new way of, so if people are thinking, you know, my book's not long enough, and I've got a couple of clients at the moment who are like, oh, my book's not long enough. And it's like, it's fine. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be 100,000 words. Definitely doesn't have to be 100,000 words. Doesn't have to be 50,000 words. You know, it can be short. And so I'm really, really glad that you brought that up. And that's a really good note to end on, that your book, hopefully, if you've done a good job of listening to your clients and ideal readers and putting that work in, is exactly the length it's supposed to be. So
I hope so.
I hope so too. But your book's cracking. I'm like, it's just such a great book, so useful, full of great stories, and everyone should immediately go and buy it. But before we get to that, I just have a very short list of rapid fire questions, and we've got literally 5 minutes, so it's like I will ask you the question and just say the first thing that comes into your head. That's how this works. So what are you reading right now?
Tiny Habits.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh no, well, I'm reading Tiny Habits, and I am listening to Sandman Act 2.
Oh, is that Neil Gaiman?
Neil Gaiman. It's an awesome audiobook.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that recommendation. I have credits to use. I'm going to go and get that right now. Thank you. And what
the
is
entire Sandman book is mad as a box of frogs, but but it's still amazing.
It is. Neil Gaiman. Oh, I actually love him. So yeah. Okay. What is a favorite book of yours? Because I know these things can change given moods and times and blah blah blah. But what is a book that you go back to?
The book I recommend to everyone, and no one buys and no one pays any attention to, is Badass by Kathy Sierra.
Right? I have that book. I have not read it.
Exactly, because I recommend it to you. And you'll go through it, and it'll appear to be a cartoon. It'll be full of pictures and not many words and little things and descriptions. But it's her describing how you can win by making something useful, not something that rather than is it the follow your ego thing, which is there's a reason why she's written her book her way, with lots of pictures and lots of things. There's a reason why their previous book, which was a software book, Head First Java, how they wrote a book in a crowded field and got top of the best-selling book around, and it was by being useful, not by attempting to look good. Cool.
So that is Badass by Kathy Sierra. Cool. Okay. And a favourite film of yours?
Any of them.
Any of them. Okay, cool. And what's the last thing? I don't know if you binge watch stuff. What's the last thing you binge watched, if you do indeed binge watch series?
And it disappointed me. Severance on Apple TV.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why it disappointed me. Right? It's an intriguing story, and you go through, and it's all very interesting, very interesting. You're investing time and effort in it, and at the very end, they don't end the story; they do a cliffhanger, right? And I just went, "Screw you, Ben Stiller! I'm not watching your second series."
Okay, cool, strong reaction. So
there's other things I quite like, say, with the Marvel thing, like say they have those things like WandaVision, or you have the other thing like the thing. They actually tell a story, and you go, "Oh, you told a very interesting story. I enjoyed that. I look forward to next year when you tell me another story." I quite like that. I don't
It's
like
really
being manipulated.
It's interesting how some people love a cliffhanger and some people really don't. Okay, cool. And what is your favorite place?
Up a mountain.
Nice.
I don't. Let me. I will describe a view.
Go on.
Right. You go.
You got 1 minute.
Snowdon, right. You go to Snowdon. You climb up Trifan, which way do not do without training, because people die. Right.
Yes.
You get to the top, and you can see Snowdonia in the distance. You're seeing all the hills and mountains around you. You see fighter jets pass in the valleys below you.
Yes.
And when I'm up there, there's something natural, so something basic in me goes, this was right.
Love it. Love Triffin. I am a climber, so I didn't climb it without training. Okay, what are you thankful for right now?
Obviously, being here with you.
No,
I actually really.
Me too.
What I find is because I discovered this book through writing it, right? Which is I had that the general concepts were there. There's a general idea, which is the idea when one person teaches to learn. So as I wrote this and as I went through, I kept learning things. I kept reading more and doing. You can't help but research as you read, and you're reading through the eyes of that. I learned so much, and everything I'm talking about and doing it with people, I'm just really enjoy it. I'm kind of changing that software I used to do. I've got talking to people. I can talk to people about talking to people.
Love it. And it is, you're right. That's what I love about writing, is that you learn while you're writing. It's just awesome. Okay, and what is on your whimsical question? What's on your bedside table?
Deodorant. It's very boring. It's not interesting at all. Also, it's also because of my brain, right? There can be nothing interesting by my bed. So my phone is elsewhere. So I go to bed and there's nothing I can do but go to sleep.
People who take their phones into their bedrooms, man, I can't even. But yeah, I have, cool, deodorant. That's the most Spartan answer I've had so far. And finally, where can we find out more about you? Where can we get your book?
Yes, go to Amazon and buy my book.
Yes, do it,
or at least read the free introduction and decide if you want to or not. So it's Be a Client Whisperer on your local domestic Amazon.
Yeah,
and then the link to my website will be there, but it's johnholcroft.co.uk.
Lovely. Thank you. And that concludes our part 2 of this interview with John. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, John. Thank you so much. We talked earlier about getting you back again for part 3. We're absolutely going to do that because we want to talk about how to listen, because most people can't do that, or won't do that. So we're going to talk about that as well. So there is a part 3 coming up, folks. But John, thanks so much for coming along and talking to us again. It's been awesome, as always, talking to you. And yeah. We'll be back again to talk more about listening.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure to talk about these things.
And that concludes part 2 of my interview with John Holcroft. It was fantastic. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed talking to John and listening to John and his book writing process. This is why I get so many people on the podcast who have written books, because I really want a big range of experiences, because writing a book is different for everybody. Everybody's going to have a different experience. Everybody's brains work differently. Everybody has different stuff going on in their life. So I think it's really cool to listen to different people's perspectives. And John was really generous in what he shared. So thank you so much for that, John. And again, you can find his book, Be a Client Whisperer, on Amazon. And I thoroughly recommend that you go and get yourself a copy. You could also find out more about John on his website at johnholcroft.co.uk. So that is where you can find out all things John, get on his mailing list, find out more about his book and any courses that he might be running in the future. And yeah, And if you yourself are thinking that you might want to write a book, if you've been listening and thinking, oh, I would like to do that, I don't want it to take 4 years, I would like to do it a bit quicker than that, then that is one of those times that getting outside help can help. So I, at the moment, have available my book breakthrough jam, which is a chance for you to hop on private coaching call with me, and we will look at your idea for your book from all angles. We'll turn it around, we'll turn it inside out, we'll think about who's reading it, we'll think about where you want to take the reader as you're writing your book, and you will go away with a working outline to be able to use and have it grow and change with you. But ultimately, you'll go away from our call able to sit down and start writing. You'll know exactly what you need to do first and second and third, and there won't be any kind of writer's block or any being stuck. You'll have a really good idea of where you want your book to start going. If that's something that you would like to do, you can find out all about that at moxiebooks.co.uk/book breakthrough. Or you can email me, vicky@moxiebooks.co.uk, and ask me anything that you would like about that process, and I will happily answer your questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go and leave us a review and rate us. Share it. If you know somebody else who is writing a book or generally, is writing, please share this podcast with them. Send them to moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, and they'll be able to subscribe to it. And thank you so much to Podfly for making this podcast sound wonderful. Thank you to Harriet for making my life run smoothly. And thank you to you, dear listener, for being here along the way and listening to our stories every week. We'll be back same time next week. Thanks so much. Stay weird. Ta-ta.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.